Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Body Track, our webinar series. Here we do once a month. Again, my name is Mike DiBiase. I'm going to be bringing these webinars to you once a month, as regular as possible. For those of you listening in, thank you so much for tuning in to another hour of a different topic. We're going to be talking about grocery shopping, ways that we can implement it healthier, smarter, and certainly better. Just some little tips and tricks that maybe you can take on and try. Not necessarily have to try all of them, but certainly try one or two of them and see if they have a more positive impact on your health and or your family's health. Let's get started. So again, title today that we're going to be talking about is grocery shopping, how to do it healthier, smarter, and better. So we always have some shopping goals and plans, and I think as sometimes time goes on and things start to happen in our life, we have families, we get busy with work, we tend to lax on our own goals and plans and just try to manage what we've been doing. And sometimes that management gets a little skewed and we get far off from what our original plan was. So with grocery shopping, yes, sometimes for a lot of people, it's a very simple thing. It's a relaxing thing for others. I absolutely enjoy grocery shopping with my wife. We love going together. We love talking. It's a great time for us just to be together and hang out. While other people have much more aggressive lives where they have a large family to take care of. They may have one or multiple jobs. They may have different time frame with jobs. Just a much more robust lifestyle that doesn't give them the freedom and enjoyment out of grocery shopping. So there has to be much more strict plans on how to grocery shop. And it really is an art form to walk around some of these stores, to navigate yourself through the proper avenues and ways to save time and money, and also provide the most balanced and nutritious meal for you and your family at the best cost, at the best time frame. So we're going to go over just some of these fun little things to do and ways for you to maybe implement some of these ideas, maybe things you haven't thought about. So ultimately, the whole goal and ideal of when grocery shopping is to create a list or lists, and you have to stick to this planned time frame. The whole idea of the list is to notify yourself at everything that what is it you need, not necessarily what is it you want, because sometimes what we want isn't necessarily what we need and we overspend. Looking for the quote-unquote necessary sales. A necessary sale, what I consider, is food that you and your family are going to eat. If you walk around the store, any one of these large grocery stores, you're going to see sales for pretty much every food item possible. Buy one, get one free, 10 for 10, buy three for $1. Any type of enticing advertisement that sounds good, and yes, it may be advantageous to buy it, but if you don't normally eat it and it's not something your family's going to enjoy, why buy it? It's still money being spent for something that's not necessary or even enjoyed. So look for the necessary sales rather than the wanted sales. Decide the proper route, time, and day to store. This is a thing that a lot of people don't consider. If you are traveling, of course, during set times, usually maybe between like 4 and 6 p.m. On a weekday, you can expect to be sitting in more traffic, which is going to expense more gas sitting there, stopping and going. If you go early in the morning or late at night, it may be easier, but you also have to take care of going to places that may not have the security that other places do if you're going to go late at night. So again, you have to watch out for the best time frame that appeals to you. The store itself, is the store a few miles down the road where it's easy to drive and turn into, or is it a 20-30 minute drive to get all the things you need? And then also looking at, is it a store close enough that for the things that aren't required to be kept cold or frozen or stored immediately in a airtight container, can you walk there just to pick up a few things? Also expensing your own energy burning calories, but saving that gas. So are these stores located in a desirable spot for you? Have the plan when entering the store. Don't go in thinking, okay, now what do I need? You should already have that plan set up, that list ready, and you should know where to start. Start where your list starts. Otherwise, you're going to be turning your head, rubbernecking throughout the store, looking for something because everything is supposed to be eye-appealing. And set a maximum amount to be spent. If you know every week you're going to spend $200 on groceries, set that limit. If you don't spend that much, great. If you're going to spend that much, but then you have extra stuff, that stuff can wait for another time. That helps maintain the budget for people who, again, are on tight budgets and don't have the ability to expense extra money for food that, again, isn't necessarily needed. And it forces you to make the appropriate choice between food items. When you know you can only spend so much and it comes down to those cookies or that deli meat that you need for your kids' sandwiches throughout the day, you don't have the money for both, so you have to make the appropriate choice. And that kind of takes some pressure off you to know that you don't have the choice. You don't have the option to get both. You have to make the proper choice for what's the healthiest, what's the best option, and what's going to last the longest as well. So setting a maximum amount to be spent gives you some freedom to choose in that amount of money, but then forces you to have to make appropriate choices at the end when you know you don't have any more to spend. And it gives you that sense of control as well, to knowing that you can spend this amount, you're going to spend this amount on the things you need, and that's that. And then try to use a store that has many other options. So there's a lot of stores now that have the ability to do some banking. Express checkouts are a big thing now, where you can do this yourself, spend a lot less time waiting for registers and cashiers. Even car repair areas. If you know that you need an oil change, if you know that you need to have your tires rotated, try to plan it out accordingly where you can do both at the same place. Again, saves gas, saves time, consolidates all of your efforts into potentially one or two places. Even small things like haircuts, being able to go get a haircut sometimes in these larger stores, and a bunch of other things. So trying to look at what can you consolidate, how do you save time, how do you save money, and what can you do in the fewest amount of stops and areas and places that you have to go to. So Kansas KSU research put this out a while ago. The average shopper spends about 40% more on impulse purchases when shopping without a list. So again, this doesn't apply to everybody. Again, average. So some people spend more on impulse, some people spend way less. But on average, in that particular area with those particular people that they observed, 40% more on impulse purchases. An impulse purchase is basically something without any necessity or reasoning to purchase that you just saw and you felt that you needed to get. And that can be because of an enticing quote-unquote deal. What I said earlier about necessary sales over wanting sales. Yes, it may be good, but is it a food that you're actually going to eat or enjoy or normally eat? Is your family going to enjoy the same food? And if you do like it, will it be on sale the next time, or are you going to have to pay full price for it and still waste more money for a food that you never really would have picked up in the first place? So those impulse buys can get us, unfortunately, and we need to stay clear of those things as best as possible. So here's a little printout to kind of just take a look for about $20. If you look at the top, and again, these prices have probably changed due to inflation and price fluctuations between things, between different areas, of course, and different cities and states. But if you look at about $20, $21.76 for 4 Whopper combo meal at that particular fast food chain, yes, that seems to be a lot of food. It seems to be very calorie dense, and yes, it will certainly serve 4 people. Or looking down below, you will see that you can actually get by weight more food for slightly less money, but that food will actually last you longer. So ultimately, those burgers and fries and Cokes are only going to last you 20 to 30 minutes, whereas the food underneath would potentially last you 3 to 5 days, if not longer, especially with the milk and the frozen food, those beans. So the money that's being spent on the healthier versions, you're actually getting more food, lasting longer, expensing less, and more nutrient-dense foods. Now, the argument will always be, but those burgers and fries taste so much better than the broccoli and milk and strawberries. And for a lot of people, yes, it will taste better. But if you were born and raised on tasting healthy foods, maybe those burgers and fries aren't necessarily the tastiest thing to you. So it's, again, how we've been raised, how we've perceived food, how we've been kind of indoctrinated into certain flavors, and other things that don't have that flavor aren't as good. So these foods underneath with the green check marks, you're spending less money ultimately and getting more food out of it. That doesn't mean we can't have a pizza. That doesn't mean we can't have burgers. It means if we're going to spend this money and we need to feed this many people for this long, what is really ultimately the best decision, and how is this going to apply in the long run? For the $10, again, for under $10, we can look at the giant soft drink pack. And yes, that would feed quite a few people for a few days, if one person, maybe for quite a bit longer. Or looking down, spending even less and getting much more food, where that food can certainly last for quite a few people with a varying amount of nutrients compared to almost the non-nutrient soft drink up above. So when it comes down to it, what is our money really being spent towards, and what can we start gravitating towards, and what's really necessary for us to consume? Again, we're not advocating that you never have these foods. It comes down to, if we have the time to prepare these things, which we all do, we all can make time, is it best for us and our families to immediately gravitate towards the convenience of the fast food, or spend a little bit of time making the food, spending less ultimately on the food, and having that food last longer, where we spend less money, spend more time together, and get more out of the food we should be eating? The first things first, like we said before, is make a list, and you have to stick to it. Organize your list based on the layout. A lot of people automatically put on their list the first thing that comes to mind. And for some people that's necessary. A lot of people may not have the scope to look at their list and rearrange it based on the scope of the store. But try next time when you're making the list, imagine the store you're going into. If you've been to that store quite a few times, you can pretty much tell where the produce aisle is, where the dairy is, where the frozen foods and all the aisles are. Make a mental picture of walking through that store and imagine where that food items would be. And you'll probably see your list shrink a little bit, because you're not imagining the foods that you want. You're imagining the foods walking through the store that you need. And it may come down to that some of these things you don't really need anymore because they're not in the areas you need to be shopping. Keep the list, again, in an area that you can find. A lot of people just plug them into their phones. Other people put them on the refrigerator. Some people do both, whatever's convenient for you. Copy the list. If you know that those foods you're going to be eating over and over again, that list should be a continuous development every week or however often you're grocery shopping. Try to steer clear, and we've all done this, shop whenever we're hungry, because sometimes the idea is, well, I'll just go get free samples and I won't be hungry. Sometimes that's good when the free samples are relatively nutritious. Other times, sometimes those free samples are bacon-wrapped bacon with a side of bacon. And we all love bacon, but how much bacon should we really be eating? So again, looking at those things, sometimes when we're hungry, we buy on impulse because everything looks delicious. Try to go after eating some food. Take your time through the store and notice the difference of what that food looks like and sounds like to you. And you're going to be less inclined to want to have those impulse buys because you aren't hungry. And check your kitchen. This is something that even I forget to do sometimes, and I'll assume that I don't have it and I'll buy it and then realize I had it all along. Check your kitchen before shopping. Always look at what it is that you really need. Do you need it this week? And this is one thing that I always have to have discussions with. And if you have something that you know can last you a week and you are going to go shopping in a week, there's no real reason to buy it now. Unless it's on sale, or else it's a better deal to buy it now than it is a week from now. But if you know that you have a food item that's going to last so long, so much time, where you know by the time it's out you're going to be able to replenish it, there's no reason to buy it. This helps, again, buying extra items, because sometimes when we buy something, there's something next to it that may entice us. And it also helps spoilage. Sometimes we buy something and leave it, and then we realize, oh, we forgot about this, and now we have to throw it away. Wait to the last minute until you absolutely need it, and then get it, and try to spare them out. That will actually save money. The shopping needs versus the wants. There is a difference between the need and the crave. So make sure you're always assessing what is it that you need for you and or your family. And one thing we have always tried to tell people, and this has helped quite a few people, is a 90-10 rule. We've all heard the 80-20 rule, but this is our 90-10 rule for grocery shopping. 90% of your food purchases for groceries should be made out of necessity only. So this means the healthy, the most nutritious, the most nutrient dense, the most bulk style of these foods, and the most enjoyable food items of the healthy, nutritious, nutrient dense foods. So when you're going through your grocery list, if this includes milk and cheeses and breads and pastas and vegetables, this is what 90% of your food purchases should be. Because if you're constantly going through milk, constantly going through fresh fruit and vegetables, you know that 90% of your food purchase, if you have $100, $90 should be going towards these food items, because one, you're always going to be eating them. Two, they're going to be some of the most nutritious and healthier food items for you, and some of the most nutrient dense items for you. And they may last the longest as well. So that's what you want to stick with. You don't have to go all nutritious and healthy, but 90% is the goal. Then 10% can be the crave foods, the indulgences. So if you have $100 to spend, 90 of those dollars should go to the most healthy, nutritious, nutrient dense, and consistently enjoyable foods for you and your family. The ones that are going to be eaten the most, that you can be proud of serving to you and your family. The other $10, 10%, can be those crave foods. Maybe that ice cream, maybe those cookies, maybe that special cake at the dessert section. Something that maybe you don't normally get, but maybe for this week it's going to be that indulgence. This is going to be able to give you to say, instead of the absolutes, I can't buy this at all. This will give you that sense of control, saying, I'm doing 90% of the best work possible for me and my family, and this last little bit we're going to enjoy on an irregular basis, but still love the fact that we can have something that's a little bit of an indulgence and something that we crave every now and then. And you have that ability to get it. So that 90-10 rule gives you a little bit of play, but also that sense of control in regulating your own health and your own nutrition plan without saying, I can never have this and never eat it. And then the day when you do go into the store hungry because you haven't eaten, then you purchase all those type of foods. So try the 90-10 rule. If you have $200, it's $180 spent on the most healthy, nutritious, nutrient-dense foods, and the other 20 can be spent on snacks, cookies, candies, gums, whatever it is you want to spend. And you don't have to spend it. This is not being a forced expense. If you don't want it, then you just saved yourself $20. But again, instead of going all or nothing, try 90-10. In continue, for the 90-10 rule, this can be a 9-1 rule for a top 10 list. Create your list of food, and then on a separate list, create your top 10, or at least your top 9. 9 of those foods that you know that you go to are your staple foods, the most nutritious foods that you know you can get. The ones that are consistently eaten throughout the week, throughout the day. For me, for example, that may be milk, some chicken, frozen vegetables, apples, or bananas or oranges, depending on what is available at that time. I know I'm going to get those foods almost every week, if not every week. So I know those are going to be my top 9. My last food item in my top 10 may be one of those indulgences. It may be that double fudge ice cream. It may be that pack of cookies. It may be that carrot cake in the dessert aisle. It may be some of those salted cheese crackers. It can be something that isn't maybe not as nutrient dense or as quote unquote healthy, but something you know that you can go to for a bit of a crave and not feel guilty about it, because it's that one item that you chose out of your top 10. So if you aren't going to do the 90-10 rule, you can do the 9-1 rule. Your top 10 list, stick with your top 10 food items, 9 of them being the most consumed, enjoyable, nutritious food items you can get, that other one being the indulgence food. So walking the store, there's 5 levels that we try to tell people, or that I try to tell people to do first, and then the rest they can do as necessary, following the 90-10 or the 9-1. So walk the store perimeter. That's the first goal. The store perimeter almost always is where the fresh F&V, fruits and vegetables, where the whole foods are located, the quote-unquote natural food items, lean meats, and nutrient-dense food. So as you walk the perimeter, pretty much any major store, you will usually see, whether it's to the left or the right, the fresh produce aisle, vegetables, fresh herbs and spices. And then as you start moving forward, you may see that this may be where a lot of the organic section is, the all-natural section is, maybe that store's own specific brand is located as well. And then as you start turning, that usually tends to become the meat aisle and the deli aisle and the frozen areas as we get further down. And then as we start turning, usually again, that's where some of the dairy and cheeses and yogurts are located as well. So following the perimeter, we can get a heavy staple of our foods that we normally consume on a regular basis into our cart. A lot of people say, well, the milk is going to get warm, and the cheese is going to. The milk may go up a few degrees during that time, but we're not spending 2-3 hours in a grocery store anyway, so we don't really have to worry about that. The milk will be fine unless you really feel necessary to go back to get it. But walking the perimeter and getting what you need and looking through your list can really help eliminate a lot of stuff off your list that you wouldn't normally get in the first place, and things that you should be trying. The frozen and cold storage is usually on one end of the perimeter, and that should be your second area. So where you're not getting your fresh fruits and vegetables, maybe some of your quote-unquote natural food items, this is where you can also get, again, the dairies and cheeses and the frozen vegetables and frozen fruits. So if you don't see fruits that you like, or the fruits that are in season at the time, going with the frozen vegetables, the frozen fruits, the frozen mixes can be just as nutritious and flavorful, and sometimes even cheaper, depending on, again, whether there's a coupon, it's on sale. But these are the things that you want to go for next. Because if you didn't get it fresh, but you still want it, the next goal is to now get it frozen, because those are usually still whole food items that have just been flash frozen. The next is the canned aisle. This is your third section that you should try walking down. So again, if you can't find it fresh, you can't find it frozen, then try to find it canned. And we're talking about a lot of fruits and vegetables here, and that should be a pretty big staple for a lot of these diets, because we want to get the most nutrient-dense foods. We're not going to get a lot of canned meats unless we are talking about tuna or chicken and those kind of things. But a lot of the leaner meats are going to be in that perimeter walk. So we've already taken care of the majority, if not all, of our meat sections. The eggs are going to be in the cold area anyway. So now we're looking at some of the canned items that we can look at to store in the pantry. And where the pantry is, that's where we can have a lot of the fun with some of our recipes that we want to do. So keep the pantry filled. This is where we're going to go down the third aisle. The spice aisle I always put fourth because the spices are what slightly change that dish you had last week to this new dish this next week. There's no calories in a lot of these spices, if any of the spices, and they do help create the different flavors. So if you have a type of meatloaf one week and you add different spice the next week, yes, it still may be meat and it still may be a loaf, but it may have just a different taste that just changes the whole scope of that meal. So the spice aisle should be fourth because we're really not adding any caloric change to these diets. Or these meals. We're changing the flavor profile of these meals that allows us to have a different taste and sensation and maybe find some new ideas for future meals. And then the fifth aisle are the grains, the bread aisle. Grains are absolutely necessary. They contain a lot of vitamins and minerals that other food groups may not have or may not have as much of. And they do last a long time. We put our bread in the refrigerator and it stays there for almost up to 2 weeks, depending on how much bread we're eating throughout the day or sandwiches or anything like that. So we're able to keep the bread much longer than normal because of bread pantries, bread holders, refrigeration. And the one thing about bread and grains are we can overconsume a lot of these. So if we don't necessarily need a lot of the grains, it may not be prudent that we go down this first because also sometimes in the grain aisles come a lot of the toppings where we'll see a lot of the syrups and the marmalades and the different butters where they may be very enticing because of how colorful and flavor they are, but they do pack a lot of calories. So if we don't need them, if it's something we don't normally eat, there's no reason to add it to our cart. A lot of people are against canned and frozen fruits, but they feel that they're inferior, and in some cases they can be because they have been altered somehow with the flash freezing, creating ice crystals or canning. Some of the nutrients get leached into the liquid inside of the can, but they're still overall fine. A canned fruit and vegetable is going to be better, of course, than no fruits or vegetables. So if you can't find the fresh, if you can't find a frozen, try going for a can because they will be shelf. They'll last a long time on the shelf. They'll be steady, readily available to you when you need them. Look for the ones where it says the fresh fruit and vegetable are in natural juices, are packed in water, sodium-free, percent reduced sodium, or even light. These are the things you want to look for because they're going to be lower in calories, still going to get the fresh fruit still going to get the fruit that you need, but they may not have absorbed some of those excess sugars or salts that really we can add later if we need to. But if we don't need them, then it's just calories that we never wanted to begin with. As with cans, drain and rinse to remove the excess liquid because that may contain a lot of excess salt and a lot of excess sugars that we don't need and don't necessarily want. Look for the frozen food items that have the assortment of veggies and in bulk. The bigger you can get, yes, you may spend $3 on a vegetable bag compared to maybe $2 on a smaller vegetable bag, but that $3 one may be twice as big for only $1 more. So you may be getting twice as much for 50% more money. So you have to weigh out the cost and amount as well. Doing the assortment of veggies also helps when you can get, if you want broccoli and cauliflower, it's certainly going to cost less than buying a separate bag of broccoli and a separate bag of cauliflower. And try not to be fooled too much by the quote-unquote microwave bag versions where you are going to be spending almost $1 or $2 more for a bag that has the title microwave bag on it, just to say, oh, I can now buy this and put it in a microwave. You can pretty much put all of these bags in a microwave. All you have to do is just buy a regular one, punch a few holes in it so the steam can release, use a fork or a skewer, and then place it in the microwave and cook. Usually 2.5 to 3 minutes. Steams the vegetables very well. Depending on your microwave, of course, you have to adjust it for your power. But the ice on the food, because again the food's frozen, is essentially going to turn to steam and then steam the food. The holes allow the steam to release so the bag doesn't explode, and then you can just open the bag carefully as if it was a bag of popcorn, and you have steamed vegetables without having to spend extra money on a marketing tool. So again, don't be fooled by some of these marketing terms. They're just ways to increase profit without really increasing nutrients in the food or the deliciousness of the food itself. And keep your blinders up. Food marketers, of course, want you to see the food and how amazing and how tasty their food could be before you taste it. And these foods are tasty because of how heavily loaded sometimes they are with these preservatives that have an immense taste fraction to them. So they may not actually be tasty in the sense that they taste what they're supposed to. They just may be tasty because they're just so strong tasting. So a lot of these marketers want you to see just how delicious they are. Keep your blinders up. You know what you need. Is this a food item that you really absolutely need? Is it part of your 90-10 or your 9-1? No, there's no reason to go. There's no reason to get it, so move on. Discounts are only going to save you money if the product is something you buy or normally buy. Don't get fooled by the whole savings and you're going to save money if you buy this food. You're still buying it, you're still spending money, period. But sometimes stores are going to up the price on other items that they know people buy while reducing the price on other items. For example, sometimes Costco, I buy Hershey's chocolate syrup. I can say that I buy this. Sometimes the price goes from about $5.89 all the way up to $6.09, depending on what else is on sale. So sometimes the price will fluctuate weekly or monthly, where you can get it for 15 to 20 cents cheaper, thinking that you're going to save a little bit of money. But that means other things may be more expensive and probably are more expensive. Sometimes you go there and it'll be a little bit past $6. That's because you may be saving 20 or 30 cents on something else that's already in your cart. So are you really saving money? No. You're pretty much spending the same amount, if not more, if you're going to buy this extra item that you didn't need to begin with. So the stores know what they're doing. You're not really saving. You're not going to save large amounts of money when they say all of this is on sale. If all these things are on sale and they're making them extremely cheap, you can bet that other things have had a price hike to make up for that loss. So really look for the things, again, that you need, that you are normally buying, and are those things actually on sale? That's how you save money. Some people get into the idea of, well, I'm saving money on this. I saved $1 this week because it was on sale, and I saved $2 on this because this was on sale, so I saved $3 so I can buy something else. Well, that extra food is unnecessary calories. It may be an indulgence you don't need, and it may have already had a price hike based on the other two quote-unquote savings. So you may be ultimately spending more anyways for the thing you thought you were saving on. So you really sometimes have to pay attention to what you're buying on a regular basis. Does this price fluctuate often? Does this price stay the same? And what else am I buying if you're going to replace it? So these are things try paying attention to when you're walking around any store. Sometimes they just manipulate the prices so one thing's on sale while the other thing goes up just a little bit to offset. Comparing unit prices, and this is, again, some of these big bulk stores do very well. They're able to show you that for purchasing this is how much it costs per unit, and those units can be anything, ounces, pounds, quarts, pints, cups, whatever it is. And they're used to compare the brands, of course, and especially the sizes of each of the brands. If you actually look, almost all the major stores do this. Some of the bulk stores do it much more easier and they're clear to read, but if you actually look on the price tag of some of the stores, just the regular shopping stores, you will see in small print what it costs per unit price. So yes, it's much smaller fine print, but if you pay attention and look, you'll be able to see and compare the different products and brands pretty well. Just an example, a 16-ounce box of cereals, $2.50, compared to a 32-ounce box at $3. So yes, I'm spending 50 cents more, but I'm getting twice as much cereal. So does that 50 cents correlate to I'm going to be able to use the cereal twice as long? It should if you eat the standard amount of cereal. If I'm eating 4 ounces of cereal every day and there's 16 ounces, that'll last me 4 days. If I eat 4 ounces of cereal in a 32-ounce box, that'll last me 8 days. So 8 is twice as much as 4. So looking at the price difference, 15 cents per ounce for the 16-ounce box, 9 cents per ounce for the 32-ounce box. Yes, I spent 50 cents more, but per ounce I'm spending significantly less, and I'm getting twice as much. So little things to do. Does the initial cost that I'm spending outweigh the long-term effect of what this is going to do for me? Yes or no? And that should be able to help you make more informed choices. Looking at the back of the food label is also going to be a big help. Some of these companies post really good items, some maybe not as nutritious. Looking at them is really going to help you determine whether or not this is something you should buy. So when you go on the back, there'll be an ingredients list if it's a processed food item. So as you look through, the ingredients that come first after the word ingredients are the ones that are going to be there the most of that ingredient. The majority of whatever that product is will be of that. So in this particular food item, the most ingredient is whole grain wheat. Great to see. But then if you look at the second most ingredient, the third, the fourth, and the fifth, dried cranberries, sugar, cranberries, and glycerin. These items, dried cranberries, we know dried fruit has a higher concentration of sugar. Still, again, it's a cranberry, and we understand that, but it's still a higher concentration of maybe unwanted calories. Then we have just plain sugar. Then we have cranberries, so we have a fruit. And then we have glycerin. So as we continue forward, we see sunflower oil, a fat, and then sugar again, sugar, rice. We see corn syrup and brown sugar syrup. So we can see that the majority of these products contain a lot of unnecessary items that we can buy separately. And if we really wanted to have this particular cereal, why couldn't we just pour brown sugar on a unflavored cereal, and we can regulate how much we put in it? So again, we have to look at, do I really want this cereal, or can I buy a different cereal and add my own products to it to make it just as tasty, and I can amend how I want this food item to taste? Yes, it's a little bit more work, but does that work pay off in more nutritious food, more time spent learning about the food you eat, and better overall for you and or your family's health? So some tips to stretch your buck. Purchase F&V, fruits and veggies, from the produce section. And a lot of people work where they have to go to maybe a salad bar, or if they go to the grocery store to get their lunch real quick. A lot of people go to the salad bar to get their food, and sometimes you have to fill a large plastic container, and the plastic container is going to cost a specific amount, $3.99, $5.99, $8.99, just to make a salad, which sounds great because everything's cut up and ready for you, but for $8.99, or however the price is, you could get a lot of fresh vegetables and fruits that's going to make quite a much larger salad, or whatever type of salad bar food that you want to eat, if you just prepare it yourself. And they're not going to be much different. They may have some dressing on top, or they may be in some type of mix, but if it's a fresh vegetable, it's a fresh vegetable that you're just paying more money because it's been cut up and put in a different container. So maybe try going, when you prepare a work lunch, go to the produce section and look for zucchini, or look for squash, or look for broccoli that maybe you can rip apart or take apart yourself with some of those plastic utensils they have there, and prepare it yourself. Preparing while you're talking, while you're eating. Again, saving large amounts of money. And you don't have to do this all the time, but maybe one time a week, being able to do this rather than going directly to the salad bar, maybe that little bit of money over the course of time, over the course of a few months, over the course of a year, saves you enough money for something that you truly want later on. So it's not eliminating everything you'd like to do, it's making a small change that is absolutely doable for the long-term investment of saving money, making smarter choices, and spending a little bit more time learning about your own food. So working a 5-day work week, maybe one of those days you don't go to the salad bar, maybe you go to the produce and fruit section and do it yourself. In-season purchases. Almost all in-season fruits and veggies are going to be ultimately cheaper at that time, which gives you the opportunity to start picking things at different times of the year, having different flavors, different opportunities for recipes, and spending ultimately less money. The in-season fruits and vegetables, that means they're coming into us abundantly, which means that they're probably going to be cheaper because there's such a quick turnover of them, and when there's just so much more of them to go around to all individuals. So try looking for in-season fruits and vegetables as often as possible, because you'll get more bang for your buck with them. You'll be able to get more, spend ultimately less, and diversify your nutrition portfolio. Adding the vegetables to meats and dishes with meats in them, it helps create a bulk in the meals. It helps fill a lot of voids where nutrients may not be located. So if you know you're going to make a lot of burgers with meat, why not cut up some fresh fruits or fresh vegetables, and put them in the burgers? Most people don't notice them. Increase the nutrient profile of them, create more bulk in the meat, where maybe you don't have to use as much meat and you're able to save it for a later time. More nutrient-dense food, just as tasty, use less of the product, save it for later, save money. So small little things you can do to add to food to save calories, save money, create more nutrient-dense foods, and be able to utilize those products later on. The grocery bargains are usually on the top and bottom shelves, and in those little corners where a lot of people don't direct themselves to. The majority of people, when we look at food, we go to eye level. So those are usually the middle shelves, top middle shelves, and that's where the major food product placement are. If you're looking for bargains, if you're looking for better deals with relatively the same quality of food, you're going to want to look at the top and bottom and sometimes the far ends of the aisles. This is where some of the smaller companies are, the companies that can't afford to put them at eye level at the prime spot and prime location, but they may just be just as good, if not just as good, as the bulk brands or the major consumer brands. So start looking at some of the other corners, some of the companies you may not have heard of, but if you turn the ingredients back, you'll see that the majority of the time they're pretty much the same ingredients. Most store generic brands are, of course, cheaper. We all know that. And some of the store brands or the generic brands actually use some of the same processing plants that the name brands use, just have different label. They just pay for different labeling. They pay for different manufacturing. And so you may be getting the same product just from two different companies, and you're spending less on one. And sometimes we just don't know that. So take a look on the back of these products and read where they're from, what state, what company, where they're being shipped from, or do the ingredients match? Do the calories match? Do the macros and micronutrients match? If so, then buy the cheaper brand. If you're buying name brands, there's always coupons available, the store ads, online. Online's becoming more and more popular, of course not with some of the cold storage foods, but if you're able to get some of the shelf-stable foods and you can buy in bulk for cheaper online, why not go for the online stores? It saves you time, it saves you gas, it comes right to your door, and also requires you to put it back on the shelf, which you would have had to do anyways had you gone to the store. So sometimes buying some of these products online, you can buy in bulk, you can buy cheaper, you can apply online discounts and coupons too, and with the swipe of the credit card, you can get it on a regular basis without really having to do any work. Food waste is a big problem, especially in America. U.S. News has reported from the National Resources Defense Council, this was just a few years ago, that Americans on average waste about a quarter of all the food and beverages they purchase. So imagine you yourself once a week are walking out of the grocery store holding 4 full bags of food: milk, eggs, potatoes, fresh fruits and vegetables, everything for your family, and you just decide to throw one bag in the garbage as you come out the sliding doors, and you take the other 3 to the car. That's essentially what we're doing with the food product that we waste. That nobody in their right mind would do that on purpose, so we're doing it accidentally. We need to really help reduce this. One, it causes a lot of methane gas buildup, which is a major carbon manufacturing of carbon in the atmosphere, but also it's just a waste of our own money and time. For a lot of families of 4, this can be $1,300 up to almost $2,300 a year. That can help fund a good amount of entertainment. That can help put a down payment on cars, a great vacation. So a lot of this money that we're spending, yes, we don't see it immediately in our pocket, but if somebody was to tell you you're going to have $2,200 extra in your bank account if you don't buy all this food that you're going to waste anyways, it sounds like a pretty good deal. One statement that they did want to say was, although the food spending as a percentage has decreased over the years, which means that we have spent ultimately as a percentage from the money that we get has decreased, a good thing, which means maybe a lot of food products are becoming cheaper, we're able to save a lot easier. It's still the 3rd largest expense for a household. So if we know that it's in the top 3 expenses for any household on average, why would we not do our best to save the money for all the other expenses that we have in our lives? So again, we really want to try to reduce food waste. And food waste comes from buying foods that we know we'll never eat, buying foods and not storing them properly because we waited too long to eat them, because clearly we didn't want to eat them at that time. So if we're not going to eat the food that we're buying, don't buy it. Don't waste your money. Don't waste your time. If you know it's something that's saying, oh, we could probably eat this next week, then just buy it next week. Even if it's quote unquote on sale this week, you're still spending money and you may waste it, which is going to be even a bigger waste of money. If you're going to spend the money, spend it to eat it. Don't get suckered by the whole quote unquote better products. You're going to see on some products range-free, organic, all-natural, cage-free, 100% Angus, prime, choice, select, all those kind of things. Some of these do have government regulations, like organic. Has to be government regulated very strictly. Cage-free and range-free have their own definitions, but those definitions can vary from farm to farm, county to county, state to state. So one person's cage-free can be somebody else's. Real legitimate cage-free can be somebody else's. That animal's left out of the cage for so much time and then put back in. Or range-free. That range can be an open, multi-acred grass area, or it could be a parking lot. So unfortunately, there is no definition, strict governmental definition for some of these. And when you get to some of the things where it says, quote unquote, 100% Angus, what does that mean? Is there a person named Angus? Is there a beef named Angus? Is there a title named Angus? Really, that may not make that meat any better. Or if it has a special marketing title, it's 100% this, or it's certified this, without being organic. Some of these are just marketing tools that their company utilizes to create their own standard. But their own standard may not make it any better than that store brand that's $5 less. So don't get suckered into the flashy advertisement and these fake quote-unquote standards unless it's government regulated or it has a moral, ethical value to you. do the research on what some of these things mean. If there's a moral and ethical obligation to purchase some of these, then that's totally legitimate and understandable. But if we're buying them because we believe that they have some higher level of nutrients, or they're ultimately better for us, or a better market or a better deal for us, we really need to ask why. What about this product makes it better? And if there is no legitimate difference other than what that marketer is trying to tell you, then there really is no reason to buy it. So again, let's not get suckered into some of these marketing tools. Let's buy what we know what we're going to eat, what's good for us, what's good for the environment, and what we can actually eat the most of without creating too much waste. Shopping with a child. This can be really great, and for some people, not so great, pretty bad, but it's a learning experience for everybody. The good thing is when shopping with a child is you get the opportunity to show the child basic and solid fundamental skills on the ideals of shopping, acting appropriately, of course, in public, and looking and teaching them about the best food options for them. And this is a great opportunity for parents to connect with their child and teach them some of the things that maybe they weren't taught as a child, and giving that child opportunities to learn about food items and food choices and responsible eating. But it also can be pretty bad when the child and or you are hungry, restless, irritable, etc. And this is what leads to bad choices, unfortunately, because we're trying to soothe the child or even soothe our own hunger and restless and irritability. So anytime you try to go shopping with a child, here's some tips. Again, we're not trying to tell you how to run your own child, run your own family, or how to teach your child to behave. There's just some tips on ways to make it easier sometime for some people. Feeding the child and, of course, yourself. This can actually help reduce impulse buying, because we've all seen children in grocery stores grabbing the foods that they are so drawn to visually, or things they know they like in previous experiences. And sometimes when a parent or guardian says no, that child can get very restless and irritable. So make sure the child is well fed, because that can actually help reduce that impulse for that child to look at something and say they want it, because it's harder for that child to understand their hunger cycle than it is for us. We've learned how to curb things. We've learned when we're hungry. The child does not necessarily. So these are things we have to teach them as we become appropriate adults and parents. So feeding the child can certainly help. Have the child take a nap as well before. If the child is irritable, sometimes we try to buy things to soothe the child to make it a much more enjoyable experience. So if the child can take a nap, depending, of course, on the age, it just makes it a little bit easier, so that child is well rested, and you can actually have a good family-oriented conversation and discussion maybe with them while you're grocery shopping. And even having the child help you with the shopping list beforehand. You're prepping the child to know that these are what we're going to buy, and even ask him or her about what would they suggest to get. Sometimes, of course, you're going to get creative, funny answers that may not apply to what you really need, but then you can also help make, if the child says we need to get X, maybe you can steer them of why you need Y, and may help them make that best choice, where now you go into the grocery store, the child knows what you're getting, you know what you're getting, and you both can make that decision together. It gives the child some power, gives them experience with grocery shopping, makes them feel important, and makes you feel that you're doing your due diligence and to teach this child the healthiest and best options for grocery shopping, rather than just appeasing them if they're, again, hungry, restless, irritable, etc. So in summary, go to a store with a plan and a set budget, and do this every time. Set your date. If you know you're going to go Saturday mornings or Wednesday nights, try to make that plan that you know you're going to go these days, these times, so you know how to plan out eating and using that food across those days, those weeks, those months, whatever that time frame is. Do your, what we call, primary sweep. Your 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Perimeter 1, frozen 2, canned 3, spices 4, breads and grains 5, and whatever else needs to be done, go ahead and use those. Go with a full stomach, you and if you bring a child or children. Make sure you go well fed and well rested, because the more irritable you are, the more likely you may make an impulse buy and spend money on food you're not going to eat or don't necessarily want. Buying in season as often as possible, potentially most nutritious food available, potentially cheaper fruits and vegetables available, and also diversify your nutrition and some of your recipes. Follow the 90-10 and the 9-1. If you're going to do 90-10, 90% of all the food you buy is the most nutritious, most enjoyable, most usable, and readily eaten foods, and that 10% is your indulgence. If you're going to do a top 10 list, your 9 most staple foods, 9 most nutritious and available foods, and that 1 choice indulgence food. If you're easily tempted to get samples, try to steer clear. If you know you're going to go to a store and they're going to do samples, walk around them as best you can. Even if you know you have to bring somebody with you to help you steer clear of those samples, because those can add up after a long time. Always shop in bulk when you're able to and when's available, if you have to buy a membership or if you have to go to a store for bulk. Discounts are only really great when it's for the foods you actually eat. Otherwise, you're just spending money on foods just to say you got it because it was on discount or it was on sale. Don't feel bad if you go to a store and don't use any discounts for foods you never eat. That means you didn't spend money you wouldn't normally spend. Feel proud about that. Use the coupons, ads, and online shopping when you can. And again, we always look for the nutrient-dense foods first. Those are your primary objective, and those are going to be in your primary sweep, your perimeter, your frozen, canned spices, and breads. So those are your nutrient-dense foods. That's where you want to go to, and then everything else can fit into that mold that you want. And that is it. Just some little tips for you to go over. Hopefully this was relatively informative and maybe gave you some insight as to things you can start doing while you grocery shop. Again, just little tips and tidbits that may help and benefit you in the long run, not necessarily help you immediately that next day, but if you're able to implement some of these, they can certainly help your attitude about grocery shopping, certainly help cheapen your grocery shopping, buy the most appropriate foods that you and or your family actually need, and just make the enjoyment of grocery shopping much more pleasurable, much more oriented towards your just general lifestyle, and overall just a happier experience. So again, hope you enjoyed this. We'll bring another webinar to you this month, October, and we'll have it posted on the BodyTrack website and of course in all of their locations. So stay tuned for our next one, and hope that we see you all for our next hour discussion with any nutrition topic, hopefully that you guys can send us, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.